It's chaos.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed. Where a town turns into a city. And a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. It's a tradition like no other. At a track like no other. And after it's all over, you still won't believe it ever happened. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our Tuscaloosa studios as we get ready for Alabama against Mississippi State on Saturday. We'll start our show by going through everything coming up thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board to go through everything on the show, plus they present our headlines each and every show. We will start by talking with Crimson Tide safety and really one of the veterans on this team, Malachi Moore, about some of the good things this Alabama defense did, especially this past week against Ole Miss. And then we'll chat from NASCAR with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He was the winner of the Daytona 500 back in February. He's put together a great season, and we are thrilled to welcome in our first NASCAR driver on the show. This has been sponsored by NASCAR, of course, for over a year, but we are talking about Talladega and the great race that's coming up, the Yellowwood 500 on Sunday here in the Yellowhammer State. So a fun conversation with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And then we'll talk to Eli Gold as he'll be getting set to host Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show later tonight. So a good preview of Hey Coach coming from Eli. We'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with Coach's Checklist. And then last but not least, we'll check in Starkville with Neil Price, the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Will give us a full scouting report with the other booth on all things Mississippi State. Hoping to see the Crimson Tide get off to a good start in SEC play on the road this Saturday at 8 p.m. against the Bulldogs. 15 straight wins for Coach Saban against Mississippi State. And also Coach Saban typically gets off to a really good start in SEC road openers. 15-1 all time. That one loss was the 2014 game in Oxford against Ole Miss. So that's the only blemish that Alabama's had on the road in SEC play to begin conference action. So hopefully that streak continues, plus the winning streak against the Bulldogs. Congratulations as well to Dallas Turner. He was named the Chuck Bednarik Player of the Week for his sacks and getting to the quarterback, causing a lot of havoc against Ole Miss this past week. Soccer team back in action coming up tomorrow. It'll be a Friday night showdown with the Kentucky Wildcats on the Bluegrass at 7 p.m. Crimson Tide, after the win last week against Vanderbilt, ranked 9th in the country. Great to see as well, right before the Vanderbilt match and also after practice a week ago, Alabama's players received their 2022 SEC championship rings, and they were shown at Bryant-Denny Stadium in the end zone, displaying those rings. Great recognition for Wes Hart and the Crimson Tide, putting really a cap on a tremendous 2022 season that saw the Crimson Tide win the SEC, plus advance to the College Cup. Coming up next Thursday, go ahead and make your plans now. Maybe go ahead and get a seat now for Alabama against Auburn. It is going to be a rowdy atmosphere. 6 p.m. The match will be televised. We look forward to the Crimson Tide against Auburn for, yes, the Iron Bowl of soccer. And we say that they do have a trophy called the Iron Bowl of soccer. So I know there are a lot of you that don't like any Iron Bowl other than anything football. This is one of those sports we can talk about it. I promise I won't do it in basketball season. All right, finishing things out, the Always Alabama licensing program was announced yesterday here in Tuscaloosa, as we've been talking a lot about name, image, and likeness opportunities for our current student athletes. Now we have a chance to really recognize some of the greats of Alabama history, not only players, but coaches as well, with the Always Alabama licensing program. Bill Battle, former athletic director here at Alabama, plus a real pioneer in the collegiate licensing field. He has been recognized as the first member of Always Alabama. So more details about that on RolledTide.com, but really great to see that opportunity for former student athletes and coaches here at Alabama. For the Crimson Tide baseball team, we talked earlier in the week how practice has started for Alabama, but another tip of the cap to Jason Jackson. JJ was named the National Assistant Coach of the Year after he did a fine job, first of all, leading this Crimson Tide pitching staff to a solid season, but when he took over as interim coach, guided the Crimson Tide through the final few weeks of the regular season, helped Alabama reach a super regional for the first time in 13 years. Just a remarkable job done by Jason Jackson. Even when Rob Vaughn was hired as the head coach, kept JJ on as associate head coach. We're thrilled for that. We're thrilled to see him get that honor. Thrilled as well to talk more about Nick Dunlap. Great play earlier this week in Birmingham in the SEC match play as he was the medalist in stroke play. He's been named the SEC Men's Golfer of the Week. Just Nick Dunlap, enjoy every bit of what he's doing right now and what's coming up in the spring because it is elite golf and certainly there's a great future for him down the road professionally. Maybe he'll be like Justin Thomas playing in the Ryder Cup one day, but Nick Dunlap doing some special things right now for men's golf. The volleyball team back in action against 22nd ranked Kentucky coming up at 1 p.m. We want a really rowdy atmosphere coming up at Foster Auditorium for the Wildcats, who 2 years ago won the national championship. It should be a lot of fun. Rashinda Reed and the volleyball team against Kentucky on Sunday at 1 o'clock. For this Crimson Tide football team, they are focused on Mississippi State. We had a great opportunity to visit with Malachi Moore, who's kind of seen a little bit of everything throughout his time here at the Capstone. He details what's been working lately for this Crimson Tide defense. Malachi, Roll Tide, what'd you like most about the win on Saturday?
Just the way our team competed and finished for 60 minutes in the game.
Yeah, the defense effort certainly was good, holding Ole Miss to only 3 points in the second half. What did the defense do best in your opinion?
I just felt like we was all on the same page and we communicated very well, and I feel like everybody knew the game plan and executed it.
Certainly did, and for you, you're able to not only be disruptive in the passing game, but also get to the quarterback a few times. What do you like about those chances when you get to blitz?
I just like sacking the quarterback. You know, as a DB, sometimes we don't get as many sacks. So when I get to blitz and just to think about getting a sack is exciting.
Can you believe that now you're one of the veteran leaders of this team?
It's kind of hard to believe, but as the season goes on, it's kind of settling in more and more.
Well, you were a freshman back in 2020. Obviously, that was a COVID summer leading into what turned out to be a national championship year. What were some of the most important lessons you learned as a freshman?
Just to keep working. I feel like that team, we really didn't listen to any outside noise, and we didn't pay attention to the scoreboard or anything like that. We just went out there and competed for 60 minutes like Coach Saban told us to do.
How have you seen the leadership on this team really step up in the last few weeks?
I feel like it stepped up a lot. Everybody's come together, and everybody's on the same page mentally, and we just keep preaching to the team that we're just going to keep chopping wood and we're going to keep working day in and day out.
Secondary's been strong for the Crimson Tide. Caleb Downs, a huge reason why. What are you seeing from him in his freshman year?
He's very instinctive, and he's a very smart player, and he's also very mature for his age. Like you said, he's just a freshman, and it's been fun watching him grow up.
How about Terry Arnold? Because Ole Miss went after him a little bit last year in that ball game. They went after him again this year, and he certainly stood tall to the challenge.
Yeah. Terry has been doing good. He's been doing great, and we have all faith and trust in Terry, and we know that he's going to lock things down on that side.
Now you get to go on the road to Mississippi State. What's going to be most important during this week of preparation, getting ready for Saturday?
Just like every week, knowing our opponent, communicating, and knowing the cause and knowing what we have to do in order to go out there and play and be successful.
We look forward to Saturday in Starkville. Malachi Moore, thank you for joining us. Roll Tide.
Thank you. Roll Tide.
Crimson Drive is driven by NASCAR, and the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are returning to Alabama this weekend. Be a part of NASCAR's legendary 75th anniversary season and make memories with your friends and family that will last a lifetime. Don't miss out on your chance to witness drivers put it all on the line at nearly 200 miles per hour to make it to the round of 8. Tickets are on sale now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. If you can't make it out to the track on Sunday, make sure you watch the race on NBC at 1 p.m. Central on October 1st. Coming up this Sunday, it will be NASCAR back at Talladega. You know, NASCAR has been a great partner of Crimson Drive for over a year now, and one of the things we've wanted to do here over the last year is really start to talk more about NASCAR on this show and talk with a NASCAR driver, and you can't ask for somebody better than a college football fan in Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Great year for him. Earlier in the season, to begin the season, won the Daytona 500, the great American race, a great performance by him. He's always done well at Talladega, and it was a privilege to catch up this week with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. This is Roger Hoover. Now, pleased to be joined by the first NASCAR driver we've had on the show since NASCAR became a partner of ours last year, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr., the winner of the Daytona 500 this season, joining us now as we get set for the Yellowwood 500 on Sunday at Talladega. First of all, Ricky, welcome to the show. I got to say, Roll Tide to you, though. I know you're an Ole Miss football fan.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Like I was telling you before we started here, I was hoping the game was going to go a little different, so I really look forward to this interview. I might be wearing my Ole Miss stuff today, but no, just tough game, but part of college football, that's for sure.
It certainly is. So tell us about growing up an Ole Miss fan. You're from Mississippi originally, but so you're nearby Alabama, but just what made Ole Miss your team?
Well, just being from Olive Branch, Mississippi, obviously love football, love the SEC, and it was either Ole Miss or Mississippi State. And I leaned towards Ole Miss. Had a lot of friends and other people that went to Ole Miss, and then I would say I became a massive fan when Coach Freeze was there. Coach Freeze and I are tight, and we built a great relationship, and so. I would say that's when I really became a massive Ole Miss fan. Growing up, I would pull for them, but growing up, I was more worried about racing and things like that. I wasn't sitting around on Saturdays watching college football. I was out at the go-kart track racing go-karts every Saturday. So as a kid.
Well, most races now that you're at the Cup level, of course, are on Sunday. What's it like in the NASCAR garage on a college football Saturday? Obviously, usually has the Xfinity race going on as well, but is everyone kind of tuned in? Who are some guys that really love the Crimson Tide that are out there?
Larry McReynolds loves the Crimson Tide. He's I don't know. You would think, he was a crew chief in our sport for a long time. You would think he actually coached the Crimson Tide at one point, but no, there's a lot of people that watch. I don't know who pulls for what teams, but Saturdays are perfect for us really on most schedules. This week, unfortunately, I had an appearance to go to during our game, but for the most part, Saturdays are awesome. I wake up, watch college game day, and then we go practice and qualify, and then get back, and just most of the afternoon after that is just watching college football. So between that and in the Xfinity race, flipping back and forth. But Saturdays are great in the fall NASCAR races.
Certainly is a special time. Well, I know a special time for you was, of course, in February of this year. The first race of the season is always a thrill. It's the best race there is, the Daytona 500. What was your preparation like for that race, and ultimately what led to the win for you and JTT Dougherty Racing?
Yeah, I mean, we felt like in 2022 we really set ourselves up for a win. We were in the top. We were leading with 6 or 7 to go. We were in the top 4 with 4 laps to go, and got spun out coming off of turn 4, battling for the lead. And so we felt like if we could put ourselves in that same position again, we'll see how it works out. And super speedway racing, you never know exactly how all the chips are going to fall when it's all said and done. But all you can do is put yourselves in the right positions and study and figure out what positions you need to be in. And so we didn't have the fastest car, but we had a car that drove really well, and missed some wrecks and just situated ourselves in the right spot, coming down to the end of the race, and made some really good moves, had some really good pushers, and blocked the right lanes at the right time. And then being out front when that last caution came out is what kind of sealed it for us.
Well, you've had a lot of success in your career before, but what was it like winning the Daytona 500, the celebration immediately, and then how did things kind of change for you right afterwards?
Winning the Daytona 500 is, the biggest race of the year for us. I mean, winning the championship in Phoenix is probably as high, but the problem is there's only 4 people racing for, that championship. So, for the rest of the sport, I mean, I would say winning the Daytona 500 is similar to winning a championship Super Bowl game. And so, man, it was wild. We had won at Daytona before, and so I felt like I knew what that Daytona, victory lane is like. But I mean, it was nothing comparable with everything that went into that race and the preparation, victory lane, and then obviously all the media and everything right after. The next morning, the next week, flying to Chicago, New York, doing all these things to help promote our sport was super cool, super tiring. I think I averaged about 3 hours a night sleep. But it was well worth it, and definitely would do that again. But that set us up, for a great season. I felt like we were a little bit more relaxed going into the rest of the regular season, and And it proved we were able to, gain enough points to make the playoffs, whether we had that win or not. And that was a big goal for us, and we accomplished that. And something that we were proud of. And yeah, we got knocked out of the playoffs, after Bristol, but we finished top 10 at Bristol, finished top 10 at Texas this past weekend. Hopefully we can, get another win at Talladega this weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned the top 10 finish at Texas on Sunday. Just what led to some good results for you there?
Just perseverance. Our biggest struggle this year has been qualifying, and that's just something that we're trying to figure out. And we went into this weekend after, getting knocked out of the playoffs, and we were like, all right, let's try and figure out how we can get better at this area of our game so that going into next year, that won't be an issue for us. But we still didn't qualify good. I felt like we were a little closer, but not great still. And, then just, I felt like our car was really good during the race, but it was just so hard to get track position, towards the front of the field. Finally, we got towards the front there at the end. We restarted 14th, a couple of restarts, and worked our way up into 9th on the last restart. So I felt like our car was good, but we just got to qualify a little bit better. And, we got Talladega coming up, and I know we'll always have a shot there.
Absolutely. What do you love about racing at Talladega?
Just the atmosphere. And, it's basically my home track. It's only 4.5 hours away from home. And ever since I started my career, we always had a bunch of friends and family that would come down to the race, and, just a ton of support. And then obviously a lot of, Mississippi fans that come over to the race as well, which is really fun. And then they always put on great concerts. Looking forward to Hardy this Saturday night in the infield. That'll be a good show, good party. And the racetrack is fun. It's really wide compared to Daytona. Daytona is a super speedway, but it's a lane narrower than Talladega is. And so Talladega, you get, 3 wide comfortable. You can get 4 wide. You get 4 wide at Daytona, you're in trouble. So, Talladega is just a little bit bigger of a racetrack and a little closer to home, which is nice.
Absolutely. You mentioned the concert coming up with Hardy on Saturday. Just how much do you enjoy kind of the party atmosphere of Talladega? Because again, it is unlike anywhere else in racing.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, normally, back in the day, we wouldn't really practice a whole lot. We had qualifying, but we would come in on Fridays. And so, kind of Friday night for sure, all the drivers would, kind of go out on the boulevard, hang out with fans, check everybody out, and, just have a good time. And then the concert Saturday night, obviously we keep it a little tamer for Saturday night, rolling into the race on Sunday. But nobody else does. The infield is rocking every single night. And it's just cool to see our fans out having fun, everybody hanging out together. And, then knowing that they're there to watch us race is pretty cool.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to Sunday's Yellowwood 500. Ricky, we wish you the best of luck with that coming up. And before we let you go, how do you feel like the Rebels are going to try and bounce back against LSU this week and try and make something out of this season?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I felt like, watching Alabama the first few weeks, I'm like, hey, we got a shot. Alabama's not in the shape that they normally are in. And I would say LSU is kind of the same way. And I feel like any SEC game, you really never know. SEC is just so tough. I feel like we just beat each other up all the time. And then you end up only having a couple teams that come out unscathed. So, it's wild. I love watching football in the SEC. I feel like it's just totally different than anything else. But, they're going to need a big bounce back for sure.
Well, there you go. Well, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., again, thank you so much for your time here with us on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Alabama and NASCAR have loved this partnership, and we look forward to everything coming up on Sunday in Talladega. Just all the best to you, finishing the season strong. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed, and a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Really huge thank you to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and his team at JTG Doherty Racing. Really looking forward to seeing him compete coming up in this Sunday's Yellowwood 500 at Talladega. So we continue on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We check in with Eli Gold. He's getting set for tonight's edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show at Baumhower's here in Tuscaloosa, and he gives us a full preview of that, plus some other thoughts on Crimson Tide football from Eli Gold. Eli, Roll Tide, it's good to talk to you, but especially after an SEC win. Roll Tide, sir.
Roll Tide, that was a nice one, and particularly after the second half. The first half was okay, but the second half, everything seemed to click for the Crimson Tide. And, it was, you saw these scrimmages as we did when we did our practice broadcasts during the offseason. We knew what Jalen Milroe could do. We knew he could run. We knew he could throw. And he it all finally clicked the other day. The good running, the play action passing, keeping everybody at bay. It was nice to see, and it was a big win. Lane Kiffin, you never know what he's going to throw at you, and so you're always kind of waiting to see what's next. And there was nothing next. Alabama just kept him in check, and it was nice to see.
It was a lot of fun for this Crimson Tide team. You mentioned Jalen Milroe in the offense. How about this Alabama defense holding Ole Miss to only 3 points in the second half?
Yeah, and that was something we all knew they had the potential to do. And, you just don't know if they'll be able to do it, and they did. It was nice to see. Dallas had himself a great ball game. He was named the Bednarik Player of the Week by the Maxwell Club that gives out that award. And for those who are young, you need to go online and look up Chuck Bednarik and see who he was when he played his great years with the Philadelphia Eagles, and see what kind of a ball player is honored when you get the Bednarik Award, be it on the weekly basis or the seasonal basis. So, it was very nice to see. The guys played well, and and it's good. You get that out of the way. Mississippi State, always tough, but they should be beaten by Ole Miss when they play each other. So I like the way things are shaping up right now. It just, like we talked, it doesn't happen all of a sudden. Everybody. Not everybody. There were people who wanted to jump off the roof after the Texas game. You just have, this is a young team in some regards, relatively inexperienced in some regards. So I don't think I don't think we saw anything that we knew that we were surprised with. We were just glad it finally showed up.
Absolutely, and certainly hope it keeps rolling coming up this Saturday in Starkville against Mississippi State. Just in your opinion, what's going to be most important for the Crimson Tide, especially trying to get off to a good start coming up this weekend?
Yeah, I think if they can continue to do what they did in the second half against Ole Miss, they'll be just fine. State's okay. They are not. I don't think they are necessarily the cream of the crop in the SEC, but they're good. Like I've always said, I don't care who you are. If you're in the Southeastern Conference, you're good. So you can't take anybody for granted. But I like the Alabama chances coming in, and it's and that's what you're just going to do replicate what they did in the second half against the Ole Miss Rebels, and I think they'll win more often than not.
So the Crimson Tide trying to sweep the Magnolia State this year, already halfway there with a win against Ole Miss. Of course, Mississippi State coming up on Saturday, and coming up on Thursday night, another edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show at Baumhower's in Tuscaloosa. What's on tap for the show tonight, Eli?
Well, we got Mick Potter coming on. He's always he's been a guest of ours every year forever, it seems. The women's golf coach, very, very nice guy. We've got Ryan Hennessy from Channel 13, the NBC affiliate in Birmingham. He's their sports director, and he's going to be our media guest. And of course, Coach Saban. And there's always stuff to talk about when that group is together. So that's coming up on Thursday evening, and then everybody will head on to Starkville and eventually wake up and eventually get to the stadium for what's going to be a 10 minutes after 8 kickoff on Saturday night, on a good night, and it could even be a little bit later than that. That happens, but we're not the only team to play those late games.
For sure. Of course, we talked about Pee Wee's fun call from a couple of weeks ago on our last conversation. Do you feel like Pee Wee will be back healthy, ready to go, ready to call in and talk to Coach Saban again?
Well, I hope so. I'll have to, prior to the show, I'll have to contact the Mayo Clinic and double check, and then the Cleveland Clinic and triple check. But no, hopefully Pee Wee's fine. He's just been under the weather a little bit, and it happens to all of us, as we know. But yeah, and if he can't make it, I'm sure the coach will make something of it to keep us all chuckling and off balance just a little bit.
Part of the fun, part of what we love on Thursday nights at Baumhauer's with Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Eli, best of luck with the show coming up. We look forward to having you back with us coming up next week on Crimson Drive as well. But thank you for your time. Roll Tide.
Always a pleasure, Roger. Thank you.
Where will you be on game day? Be part of the action with a premium reserve tailgate from Game Day Done Right. Get your group together, pick your game and tailgate package, add on catering, beverages, and other tailgating amenities, and let Game Day Done Right take it from there. Enjoy all the fun of game day with zero stress. Visit GameDayDoneRight.com to reserve your tailgate today. For your next tailgate, just add people. Game Day Done Right is the exclusive provider of reserved tailgating opportunities for the University of Alabama and offers packages for all group sizes for a single game or for the entire season. Make sure you head and go reserve now for Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU, all on the horizon, and Chattanooga. So make sure you go to Game Day Done Right to take care of those opportunities to tailgate on the quad. Last night, it was head coach Nick Saban, not on the quad, but at the Malmore Athletics facility, talking with the media for the final time this week as he gives a few updates on what's ahead for Saturday against Mississippi State. Here's Coach's Checklist with Coach Saban.
I think it's really important that our players have the right mindset going into this game, play with the right energy level, have the right focus to execute and play to a very high standard against a very challenging team playing on the road in the SEC. These guys are very aggressive. They're very physical. They've got, aggressive style on defense, lots of pressures, lots of challenges for the offense. So they got, really good players, good running back, good quarterback, good receivers. On offense. So, attention to detail is going to be really important for us. It's like I said on Monday, to the players. When you look at the film and things work and we do it right, why was it right? And then when it doesn't work, why didn't it work? And most of the time, it's something to do with us. Something to do with our execution, our fundamentals, our fundamental discipline, our eye control, whether it's blocking, tackling, turning the ball over, whatever, making good plays, making bad plays. So then you say to yourself, well, what if? What if I had the right sense of urgency? What if I had the right discipline? What if I had the right focus in practice to create the right habits? Because after the fact, you can only say only if, and regret that you didn't do everything that you could do to get ready to play the game. So, our players have been pretty good this week, and we need to continue to do that and clean up some things so that, we go over there with a lot of confidence in what we need to do to win. I would say that, played well at times, but need more consistency. We need to develop confidence in terms of playing together, quarterback, receiver. I'm supposed to sit down if it's zone. I sit down. You drift and it's zone. It's 3rd and 5. Now the ball comes out because the quarterback thinks you're going to. So you're punting instead of getting a first down. So I think all those little things and those details I say this all the time, might be the most overused attention to detail term in the building that, can make things work or not work. And I think we need to pay more attention to detail and the togetherness of how we execute in the passing game, whether it's protection, whether it's quarterback reads, whether it's route running, the whole thing. I think we can just, continue to make a lot of progress. And I'm not disappointed with the way the guys playing. They've made some great plays, but I think the consistency would be helpful. I think there's quite a few guys in the defensive line have made some contributions and continue to make contributions. I think we have some really good young players at defensive line. We need to get those guys to understand what it takes to play at a high level and get game ready in terms of preparation, how to practice, how to really understand the game plan, understand what the other team's trying to do. But I'm encouraged by the progress that they've made, but I think that's the number one thing the young guys need to be working on.
Don't miss out on your chance to see the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs return to Talladega, Alabama this Sunday. Purchase your tickets today for the NASCAR Cup Series playoff race at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com and watch as the drivers battled out to make the round of 8. Well, last but not least, here on this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we get a full scouting report on the team that Alabama is facing on Saturday, Mississippi State. Neil Price, longtime radio voice of the Bulldogs, joins us now to let us know what's new about the Bulldogs in this 2023 season. Neil, it's great to see you. It looks like you got your cowbell ready for us already coming up on Saturday, but we look forward to being there. How's everything going?
Been good, Roger. Good to talk to you.
Well, we're certainly excited for what's coming up. Alabama Week 5 against Mississippi State. We've already seen the Bulldogs play 4 football games, couple of wins to start the year against Southeastern Louisiana and Arizona, and then losses the last 2 weeks in conference play to LSU and South Carolina. Just what have you learned about this football team so far this year?
Well, we've learned that, when they've been challenged, they have got a little ways to go. And, I think that's been on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So the SEC does that to you, right? Teaches you a lot about yourself, teaches you a lot about where your shortcomings are, because it's a league full of good teams who can expose them. I think what we found out at South Carolina this past Saturday is that State's offense is not as bad as it has appeared in, games like Arizona and LSU, where it only managed to run 50 some odd plays. That was encouraging. It's something that State can build off of, I think, as it gets deeper into the season. What we're learning defensively is that there's still a long way to go, and it's a team that has had a rough time trying to contain good running quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels made a fair share of plays with his legs when LSU was here a couple weeks ago. Spencer Rattler made 2 really big plays using his legs in the South Carolina game this past Saturday. So it's a defense that's still trying to learn how to constrict the pocket and how not to give up those running lanes. You can do a lot of things right depending on how you defend a team. You can cover downfield well. You can do all of that. But if you lose contain, all of a sudden, none of that really matters anymore. So it's doing little things, doing them well, and doing them consistently. And State's still trying to figure out how to do that.
Going back to last year, it was so sad learning the news that Coach Leach had passed away after a great run in Starkville. Zach Arnett gets named the head coach. What were his first priorities immediately following Coach Leach passing away? And then how have you seen him kind of grow into this role now that we've got into the season?
The immediate priority was to keep the recruiting class together, and he did that. So mission accomplished there. And, he's a guy who is heavily involved in the recruiting process, so he had as much of an understanding of exactly what was at stake with regard to that maybe than anybody. So he absolutely did what he needed to do in the short term in December, immediately following Coach's passing. beyond that, it was to kind of get the people in here who could help him have success as quickly as possible. And I think if you look at the makeup of his coaching staff, David Turner's been in the SEC for a long time. Will Friend's been in the SEC for a long time. Chad Bumpus, who coaches the wide receivers, is a guy who knows Mississippi State better than just about anybody because he played here and was one of the best wide receivers to ever play in the history of the program. So he was very intentional in identifying people who could help him not only understand the SEC and people who knew what it takes to win games in this conference, but he also wanted to find people who knew when Mississippi State was at its best, what the program was doing at those times that they could try to replicate or that they could go back and just simply implement into what they're doing either in training camp or what they've done as part of the practice routine weekly. If it was something related to travel, even something as specific as that, could they find a way to institute that again? So he tried to make sure he got the people around him right. And then, in terms of what the expectations are, in terms of what the very basic tenets of the program are, I don't think any of that has really changed. He's carried over a lot of what Coach Leach was trying to do with regard to playing with energy and effort and those things being non-negotiable, making sure that everyone's trying to do their job, their 1/11th of what they're supposed to do on the field, and that you keep this mentality of playing the next play, and you do all of those things over and over and over until the clock says 0-0-0. That was Coach Leach from day one. And, of course, Coach Arnett was with him here from day one. And I don't think any of that has changed. I love talking to him. I do, because, here's a guy who just turned 37 not that long ago, earlier this month. And I joke that he's a 50-year-old football coach in a 37-year-old body. He is. He is very old school in the way that he approaches things. And in this league, I think that will serve him well. I really do.
And on Saturday night against South Carolina, like you mentioned, the offense started to get clicking. What led to some success for Will Rogers, also Tulu Griffin and Jaquavius Marks with the great performance that he had?
Well, offensive line protected better than it did against LSU. I think that's where it starts. Will Rogers had some time. It seemed like in the game against LSU a couple weeks ago, he'd get the ball in his hands and he'd have two guys staring him right in the face when he got it. And, obviously that's not a formula for success. But that offensive line bounced back, protected better, and did it with five in a lot of instances in that game this past Saturday. In terms of Will, I think when he's got time to operate and he doesn't have a couple guys in his lap right away, gives him time to go through the progression. And as he went through that progression, what he was able to find with Tulu Griffin is that South Carolina elected to try and play man-to-man against him in the middle of the field, and Will took advantage of that. So, Tulu is a guy that we've all known from day one that he arrived on campus, he could be an explosive playmaker. And it's exciting to get to see him realize some of that now as a wide receiver. We've seen it in special teams plenty, but we've not really seen it from him at the receiver position prior to the first 4 games of this year. And I would say in terms of how he started the year, he's been as good as anybody at the wide receiver position here in a long time. With the way that he's been able to get off to a quick start. So you hope that continues. But again, in the SEC, you're playing against some really athletic defensive backs. It's a little tougher to create separation sometimes. And if you get an opportunity to do that, it's kind of on two guys, right? Tulu's got to take advantage if he finds he's got a favorable matchup, and Will's got to find him. And they were able to get on the same page several times in that game this past Saturday.
Certainly did. Well, looking to the defensive side of the ball, who are some of the really dynamic playmakers we need to know about before this matchup?
Well, I think it starts with the two veteran linebackers. It starts with Buki Watson, who is an Alabama native from Maplesville, and then Jet Johnson from just up the road here in Tupelo in Mississippi. Both are sixth-year guys. They've played a lot of football here. They've been among the leading tacklers in the SEC each of the last 2 seasons. And they're right up there again at the start of this one. They just play with great effort. If you wanted people on your football team to mirror 2 guys, those are 2 good ones, because they just constantly find ways to make plays and get it done, and they do it with just pure energy and effort. On that defensive front, Jaden Crumedy is a guy that a lot of people believe will be an NFL player. Had he not had a wrist injury that kept him on the shelf most of last year, a lot of people believe he'd be in the NFL right now. And Nathan Pickering is a guy who was a highly touted recruit several years ago, and we're really starting to see him now later in his career really understand how to play well in the center of that defensive line. I thought he had a fantastic game against South Carolina this past Saturday. Really did a nice job of creating push. He pushed a couple of South Carolina offensive linemen back into their running backs, and while he may not have tackled the guy himself, he certainly made sure to knock him off balance and get him off the ground. So I think that says a lot about the way that he's trying to play. And then at the back, Sean Preston had to miss the first half of the South Carolina game to serve a suspension for a targeting penalty against LSU. And all of us found out exactly how important his experience, along with Marcus Banks, who transferred over from Alabama a couple years ago, those 2 guys, because of their age and experience, make a difference when they are both on the field together. When State had to lean on some young people with Preston out of the game in the first half, there were some mistakes there, which are going to happen with young guys. But once Sean got back in the game, you could tell an instant difference. And again, he plays with a lot of energy, enthusiasm. He comes off the bench and immediately forces a fumble, and that's what you want to see out of those guys who get to play downhill a little bit at that safety spot. So those are a few that come to mind on defense that have been consistent playmakers so far.
Well, Neil, we're really looking forward to making the trip to Starkville for that 8 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. Just thank you so much for your time with us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, getting us ready on the Bulldogs. Look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
All right. See you, Roger.
Thanks to Mississippi State's Neil Price for joining us for the other booth as we get set for the weekend. It's Alabama against Mississippi State on Saturday. Let's take a look at what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, thanks to our friends at Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We always have the relish pickle chips here with us on set. Wickles Pickles really can elevate your game day. Just go online to wicklespickles.com to learn more. Let's see what's coming up on the Crimson Tide Sports Network this weekend. Well, you know what? We are not done yet. Even on this Thursday, we will have an exciting edition of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show that Eli Gold previewed earlier, coming up starting at 6:30 from Baumhauer's Victory Grill here in Tuscaloosa. Don't forget as well, on our television affiliates plus online on the Alabama Athletics YouTube channel, you can catch a new edition of Tide TV This Week, hosted by Kinsey Hughes. Tomorrow on our Instagram and YouTube pages, we'll have a quick video preview of what's coming up on Saturday. Saturday, of course, the main event, Alabama against Mississippi State. Yes, it is going to be a later night. 5 o'clock our radio coverage will start. 8 p.m. our radio coverage will continue with the ball game. Chris Stewart, Tyler Watts on the call for the kickoff at 8 p.m. And then I'll wrap up the Everwood Crimson Tide post-game party maybe 1 a.m. on Sunday. We'll see. But it will be a good time, hopefully, coming up on Saturday in Starkville. Then on Sunday, it will be Coach Saban as well as Chris Stewart recapping the ball game with the Nick Saban television show, again, across our television affiliates all over the state. And then on Monday, a new edition of Crimson Tide Rewind as Corey Reamer and I will talk about Alabama against State, plus start to look ahead to what's coming up next week when it's time to talk about Alabama against Texas A&M. A couple of weeks on the road for the Tide coming up, but that's what's coming up this weekend thanks to our friends at Wickles Pickles. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. A huge thank you again to the first NASCAR driver we welcomed to the show, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Wish him all the best coming up on Sunday in Talladega. Thanks as well to Eli Gold and Neil Price for giving us their thoughts on Alabama and Mississippi State football. Thanks as well to Ethan Carabin, our video producer, putting the show together. He'll be producing the Royal Furniture Booth Cam. Make sure you watch out for that coming up on Saturday here on the CTSN social media platforms. But for everybody, the Crimson Tide Sports Network, I'm Roger Hoover saying a huge thank you for watching this Thursday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We look forward to talking football with you coming up on Saturday in Starkville. Until then, have a great weekend. Roll Tide.